Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's Paint With Me Live. My name is Brittany Lewis. I'm a professional graphic designer and illustrator, and Sundays is the day that I work on my dream project, the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. So we're getting a little bit of a late start because I'm running on some CP time today, but I hope you guys are having a wonderful day so far. Hey TN lady, early, look at you. I'm so happy to see you. How y'all doing? I hope that you all had a great week. Before we get into today's card, before we start making progress towards the finish line of this dream project of mine, please do me a huge favor. If you like to watch live stream videos such as this one where we create and talk and chat and all the things, be sure to hit the like button. That helps me out so much. That lets YouTube know that you appreciate this kind of content and that you think other people would appreciate it as well. I do have a goal of reaching 1,000 subscribers, so that helps move things along. Right, so if this is your thing, be sure to hit the like button. It helps out a whole lot. If you like the art that I create as I am creating it, be sure also to subscribe, and then there's going to be some links down in the description where you can purchase a piece for yourself. Now, we are working in Clip Studio Paint. There are also, before I get into it, some links for how you can hire me just in case. So we're working in Clip Studio Paint, and I'm going to be working on the 5 of Cups from this project, the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. So I have made some pretty good progress on this, and I'm just going to give a little bit of a reminder of the backstory for this particular card. In the Rider-Waite-Smith system, which this deck is modeled after, not a clone after, but is definitely inspired by, this card is a card of grief. This card is a card of sort of redirection in a way. This card shows a person who has made a mistake, who has experienced a loss, who has experienced something unfavorable, and rather than looking at the larger picture, they are sort of hyper focused on that thing that doesn't seem to be going right in their life, right? So in this case, it's going to be cups. So in the original source material, there is a man who's standing by a river who is paying attention to 3 falling cups, and behind him is a path, and across the river we see that there is a bridge in a town, so there's access to more cups, right? Potentially there's access to more information, to more people, to more community, to whatever he feels like he's lost. There is access to it if he only changes his perspective. So in the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, I decided to take that story and sort of switch it a little bit. I do intend, when I am creating these cards, to tell stories slightly differently, but also to lean into visual storytelling. So our character in this particular card has spilled some cups from a bar, right? And so rather than pay attention to all of the things that they have behind them, because there's much more than cups. There are 2 more full cups. There are all kinds of treasures and things like that behind this bar. They're sort of hyper focused and hyper fixated on the 3 cups that she spilled, and all she has to do is just stand up, right, to adjust her focus, to adjust her point of view and her perspective, to sort of enjoy the treasures that are available to her. So that is the story behind this card. And so we've been focusing a lot on working on the background for this, because a lot of the background pieces have lots and lots of details. I am a reference queen, so a lot of these were pulled from references that I found across the internet, and some of them do have specific meanings and allocations that'll sort of bring more story to this card. So we're just gonna get back into it. So where we left off, I have the sketch on, so things are a little bit misaligned, because as I'm working, I have a sketch, which means that I have a plan for each illustration, but I do allow myself to change things and move things around however I feel like they should be moved around. So I'm going to turn off the sketch just so you guys can have an idea of what things are looking like without the sort of the crutch of the lines. They're looking really good. Now, when I'm illustrating, I tend to sort of, it depends on how I'm illustrating, right? So if I'm making things up, they tend to have, it depends on what it is again, they tend to sort of feel stylized instead of like hyper realistic. In this case, I'm sort of teetering between having some things that are really realistic, such as the fish and the vases and the all of the statues and all of the things, and also having things that feel stylized but close enough to realism where they still sort of feel a part of the same world. So I'm having to balance that out. I think that because I am using references and I am definitely drawing what I'm seeing, right, rather than concerning myself too much with making sure it looks like a drawing rather than something real, I am having to like be careful, sort of draw back on the information that I include in each of the pieces for this particular illustration. But so far, things are looking pretty good. So we have two sort of cubby holes to fill in our background. We have the book and ducks, which is, for those of you who are watching this in the horizontal panel, I'll have the reference shown on screen so you guys can kind of see where I pulled this aspect of the illustration from. And then we also have some plates to draw on. So I think the easiest thing will be, I think the easiest thing while we're streaming is probably going to be to work on the ducks. I was going to do the plates, but when we stream, I have a little bit of a lag, so it's easier for me to do finer details when I'm not sort of doing a lot of things at once. So we're going to tackle these ducks, and then the next plan of action, after I get the items in the cubbies completed, I'll probably go ahead and finish the bookshelves behind the bookshelves so that it looks like lighting is showing down on each of the items because of the way that they're lit. And then we'll work on the foreground, getting our main character completed, our stools, the floors, and all of those things. And then we'll be finished with this card. So this is probably going to take another couple of weeks because I am also balancing out 2 cards at once along with other creative projects and endeavors. So I do actually I've been working this week for the last couple of weeks. I've been definitely getting a lot of artwork done, but balancing it out for myself so that I'm not staring at the screen so much, because as a digital artist, we're like glued to our screens. In my case, you guys can't see it yet. One of these days I'll do a behind the scenes tour of like what I'm looking at. But from where I am sitting, I am staring I am like maybe less than a foot away from my drawing surface, which so happens to be a screen, right? So when we're spending hours and hours and hours sort of glued to a screen, for me, it causes headaches and things like that. You get a little bit of eye strain. So being able to balance it again and do the traditional work and to do drawings and paintings and things like that outside of the digital space is really helping me out a lot, and I've been enjoying it a whole lot. So it's been a lot of fun. So I was going to grab, and I might grab it here in a second, I was going to grab a illustration that I did that I'm editing a video for. Now in this illustration, I was working with acrylic markers for the first time. I've never used acrylic markers ever. I have lots of experience with acrylic paints, right? So, but I've never used like the acrylic markers. And acrylic markers meaning like things like Posca is one of the brands. I see a lot of artists use Artix, I think is the brand. Ohuhu. I think Copic makes acrylic markers. So there's lots and lots of different brands and whatnot. I just picked the one that was on sale. To be honest with you, I just picked the one that was on sale so that I could kind of give it a try and see what I could create within sort of a limited palette. And so I had a lot of fun with that. And I'm speaking to limited palette. I had 48 markers, which seems like a lot, right? These markers, marker packs, whenever you buy them in packs of like 48 or whatever the case is, they do tend to be limited in range, right? So whenever I'm coloring, and I do a lot of portraits, so whenever I'm painting, when I'm painting with my paints, I'm only working with like 8 colors, and then from there I can mix like a whole range of skin tones, a whole range of other tones to flesh out my images to get the colors that I want. When working with the acrylic markers, one of the things that I noticed was that it was limited in like lights to darks, and you're not really able to mix the same way that you could with regular paints. So I'm going to be doing a voiceover later on today for that particular video. And again, I might show you guys what I was able to come up with just to give you a sneak peek, because I'm real proud of it. I haven't done a picture or portrait. It's a self-portrait. I have not done a self-portrait in so long, and it was just a whole lot of fun to do. It was a challenge though, because again, I didn't have like the range of skin tones to sort of meet light and shadow. And so one of the things that I would like to challenge myself a little bit later, once I get this video out and get a few other things completed, is I kind of want to see if I can use these same 48 markers to create some with much richer skin tones, right? I think that would be a nice challenge, and I think I would really like to sort of put those markers to the test. But I had a lot of fun doing that. I had so much fun doing it. I've also gone to a photography club. You know, y'all hear me talk about photography club all the time. photography is definitely something that I am not like a serious photographer by any means. I do enjoy taking pictures and doing photography as sort of a hobby, right? Again, sort of breaking away from the computer so much, breaking away from, just kind of being glued to a screen. So that's always a nice change of pace. And for me as a creative, being in an environment with people who are sort of doing a different kind of creativity helps me along the way in my own like main practice, right? Because there's still so much overlap with visual storytelling, with composition, with sort of creating images and telling stories and things like that with the pictures that you create. All of that sort of overlaps itself from photography into illustration and all of the things. So I don't know, it was just a lot of fun. Yesterday's photography class talked a little bit about entrepreneurship for photographers. Now, in that, I'm always a student, right? So for me, I'm always a student. I'm always looking to learn from people, right? From different experiences, from different classes and things like that. I've gone to so many entrepreneurship classes, as someone who owns a creative business. So I was really, really interested to see sort of what I could take away from learning from a professional photographer and how she ran her business and did the marketing and things like that, just so that I can add it to my own business or kind of see what I could use, or kind of see if I could find like some tips and tricks and things like that maybe I hadn't heard before that I can incorporate into my own business. Now, in that class, I didn't necessarily get what I wanted, I guess, because it just wasn't the way that the presentations were structured. However, it did reinforce something that I always have an idea of, and that's again that you can learn from every single experience that you have. So for me, there was a lesson in that, right? There was a lesson in listening to the presenter speak about her journey as a photographer, to sort of, and then watching sort of how she navigated answering questions that she may not have considered herself because she was very new in business and just was presenting from her experience in business. I think she said since 2024. So just sort of listening to that and kind of watching things in between and kind of reading in between the lines. The lesson that I took wasn't necessarily the intention of the presentation, but the lesson that I took from that was just about confidence, right? You don't necessarily have to have all your ducks in a row. You don't necessarily have to have all of the answers, but again, being open to learning new things, being open to new experiences, and then not being shy about the things that you do well and the business that you own and the services that you provide and all of that. So that was the lesson for me in that. Now, again, she did talk a lot. She talked much more about her personal journey like as a photographer than the business itself, but I think that kind of came from, again, her being very new to business, and that's perfectly okay. There's nothing wrong with that, right? As she grows, she'll have more to teach and more to share and all of those things. But again, taking the sort of just watching her be so very confident and passionate about what it is that she did, and then learning how she approached networking, which to me, I don't know, networking is one of those things that we all have to do. I want to be able to reframe the way I guess I look at networking, because anytime I hear the word, my mind goes to like using people, right? Typically when people approach networking, it is, what can I get from you? Right? And I think that's kind of how I was reading it, but just sort of hearing how she used a bartering system, right? So not just what I can get from you and how I can use you for my own betterment and benefit, but how we can help each other. And so I guess that is the spirit of networking, right? Or that should be what the spirit of networking is. But I think anytime I ever hear anyone speak about it, it's not necessarily from the perspective of building and forming and forging relationships. It's always like, okay, what can I get from this person? So she spoke about a person who did a mural for her, but she did not speak about how sort of they exchange services, but in some other instances she did. And so just again, taking away what I resonated with was very important, and that's important as we sort of move through life and have different experiences and things like that. Even if you're learning from different teachers and reading different books and seeing different videos, you don't have to agree with or resonate with the entire thing, right? You can pick and choose and cherry pick the aspects of what you're learning and what you're experiencing to better your life, right? To sort of use and say, oh, okay, well, I didn't necessarily agree with that, or I would have done that differently, but this other point that was made does register or does resonate with me, and it's something that I can incorporate into my own sort of being. So It was really, really good. It definitely brought up some questions and things for myself in terms of like how I could move better as a business owner. Some things that I need to improve. Some stuff we've already talked about, of course. Doing some work on the website and making it very clear of what my services are so that people can go on and easily navigate. Right now, it's not quite there. Right now, it just kind of goes to a form so that we can talk. It does work to a degree, but I want to be able to make things as easy and accessible as possible for people who are looking to hire a professional graphic designer illustrator. In terms of systems, which is something that a lot of entrepreneurs always speak about, I have a pretty good system in terms of like how I do consultations with my prospective clients, how we move through the project, how I do contracts and proposals and revisions and all of those things. All of those systems are in place, but for me, the marketing aspect of it is something that I am still sort of figuring my way through, right? A lot of that has to do with the fact that for right now, it's just me. So for some people, they have teams and things like that, which she spoke about in our presentation, developing a team and having people who can be there when you're not available and when you're not able to, is definitely the goal, right? So currently, y'all watching the come up, that is absolutely the goal, to have a team of people who can help you sort of, or help you delegate tasks that you may not be able to get to, who also have experiences and expertise to move your business forward. That is the goal. Right? But until then, my sort of challenge is figuring out a way to navigate business to get me to a point where I can hire a team, right? Or I can bring people along who can help move the business and things like that forward. So that's how my weekend went. You know what I mean? We also did a photo walk. One of these days, I'm going to show you guys some of the photography that I do. I love photography. I'm not, I'm not a professional photographer at all. It's not something I would ever like. Well, I can't foresee in the nearest future charting or doing anything like that for, but I enjoy sort of walking and like finding pictures and things that I find interesting and sort of recording them through pictures. That is also a great way for me as an illustrator to get references, right? So a lot of the times I get references from the internet when I am making illustrations, even if it's for illustrations for clients and things like that, I am queen reference. Anytime someone comes to me that is looking for a specific type of artwork or a specific look, I always ask them to send me references of things that they like, right? So I can know which direction to move through as I'm creating illustrations and things like that, graphic design as well, for my clients. So I am very much pro reference, and doing photography is one of those things that can be useful for people who are creating images, right? For in any medium, whether that is your painting, whether you are drawing, whether you're creating comics, right? Whether you are doing tarot cards or whatever the case is. To me, having that sort of knowledge base just as a hobby again has been definitely been an invaluable skill to have. Same with graphic design, and I am a professional graphic designer and illustrator. My passion is in illustration and in painting and creating sort of fine art in that arena. However, having the skill of graphic design has been an invaluable tool, right? So very glad that was a path that I chose to take when I was in college, because my philosophy even then was like, okay, I know I'm going to be in a little bit of debt as I'm getting this education, so let me get something that I can market, like a skill that can be used and sold and all that to do services, but let me also sort of hone in on my skills with fine art. So I did a lot of balancing and doing the thing that I felt would be most useful career wise at that time, and then also doing the things that I was passionate about. So yeah. I'm coming in here hot. Last week we didn't do a Sunday stream. I just didn't feel up for it. But we did come back Wednesday and we worked on the 5 of Wands, which is coming together really, really well. So just in case you guys missed that is a Bring Your Own Project live stream. Now during those streams, I don't do a whole lot of talking at all. I do an introduction, and then toward the end of the stream, I will speak on what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, what some of my challenges and hurdles and things were, which come up, right? one of the fears that I had as I began to live stream was sort of showing the behind the scenes process, right? Because art goes through phases, and up to that point, I would show some work in progresses, but it would be like highly tailored to what I thought looked good to share, right? So it would be the sketch, and then maybe it would be like the flats layer, so flat colors. It might be something detailed, like for instance, I showed the Queen of Wands around the time that I was working on the Queens of this deck a few years back, and I showed the work in progress for it. So I would do the sketch, I did the flats, and then the very next work in progress was like the completed face, right? And then you got the completed picture. So showing sort of the ugly phases of artwork has been definitely liberating, I would say, but it was something that I was very afraid to do while I was figuring out, kind of getting out of my head, getting over fears and things like that of showing the art process. So I'm really, really happy to be able to do that. And while it's auto-saving, I'm going to show you guys what the Cosmic Gateways Tarot looks like. So for those of you who are new here, the Cosmic Gateways Tarot is a project that I started in 2019. So if you guys are watching this in the vertical aspect of it, because I am streaming both vertical and horizontal, switch over to the horizontal so you guys can see the full thing. But I started this project in 2019. This is a dream project. So this is something that had been wanting to do for a very, very long time. It took me a long time to sort of build up the courage and the nerve to jump into this, because at that time I was only doing certain kinds of art, right? I would do portrait commissions, which I still do, right? So if you want your portrait created, let me know and I can send you over a price sheet. But I was doing portrait commissions, and I was doing a lot of comic related art. So I did quite a lot of comic book covers at that time. So I was being hired to do comic book covers. I also was doing a lot of fan art. And so a lot of my art was sort of commercial, had a commercial appeal to it, right? But I was itching to do something a little more personal. I was itching to express myself and through my artwork by creating the images that I wanted to see, create like a series of self-portraits. I'm going to show you guys this portrait here in a bit, but just to create a series of, just to create a story about my own journey in life, my own spiritual journey, and also to create representation in a spiritual space through these tarot cards. Because at the time, I was also very actively a tarot reader. I don't read as much as I used to, but I was very actively a tarot reader. I collect tarot decks to this day, even though I don't read as much as I used to. And one of the obstacles that I was finding is that I was not seeing myself represented in the way that I wanted to be represented, right? A lot of times we as people in general, as consumers, will wait until the market catches up to our needs. But because I have a skill, right, because I could draw, because I wanted to see this thing done, the idea sort of came to me to create the deck myself. And so the whole premise of this deck, again, is to create positive representation of Black people in spiritual spaces, because anytime we would show up in different spaces to this day, right, it's getting a little bit better, but to this day it's usually from a very negative perspective. It's the dark magic, it's the woe it's me, it's lots of trauma, it's lots of things like that. And so I wanted to be able to create images that felt magical. Right? I still aim to create pieces that feel magical and luxurious and rich and prosperous and all of those things. So that has been my goal. Now it has taken me, we're at year 6, right? So we'll probably be finished year 7 or 8-ish, but we're at year 6 on this particular project. It has definitely been a labor of love, and it has been something that has taught me a lot about myself, right? Because doing something that you dream of and sort of navigating the space of not having an instant gratification, not getting it done as quickly as I would hope, right? Taught me a lot about myself, definitely has made me practice patience, definitely has made me sort of give myself credit where credit is due, right? Because I've accomplished so much in this particular project, just sort of working in this project, meeting so many of you guys, meeting so many very interesting people, and all of these things, all of these wonderful experiences, whether they felt good in the moment, right, or not. This project has pushed me sort of out of the mundane, out of sort of my old habits, out of my old outmoded thinking and all of those things. So for me, this is a very, obviously it's a tarot deck, so it's a very spiritual medium anyway, but it's been a very spiritual process. So I'm very happy to have y'all along the way for this, right? So whether you're new here or you've been here with me since the beginning, I really appreciate each and every one of you guys. Now, here's where I ask you for a favor. Now, for me, it is difficult. Again, we've talked a little bit about me being sort of a solo entrepreneur for the moment. That is definitely going to be changing in the future. However, if you would like to support me and maybe you're not able to afford like the canvas prints, or like it's just not coming together for you right now, that's perfectly okay, right? There is a quick and easy way that you can support me, right? That is to spread the word. Tell people about this project. If this is something that you love and you've enjoyed watching me create, you just like me watching me run off at the mountain, right? As I tell stories about life and my different experiences or whatever it is that you find fascinating over here, tell people about it, because the more people learn about this project, the more the more opportunities we have for success and getting it out to as many people as possible. So we do have a couple more years on this. I'm again very excited. I have not gotten tired of working on this. I think my husband asked me recently, do I still really enjoy sort of working on the project? I don't get tired of it yet. I have not gotten tired of it yet. I very, very much enjoy creating these images and sort of coming up with stories for each one of the pictures. It is a joy, right? So when I tell you guys it is a dream project, it is absolutely a dream project and something I have enjoyed along the way. Again, it has taught me so much about myself in ways that I don't think I would have learned otherwise, right? So it has definitely put me in spaces and situations to have conversations with others as well as with myself to kind of, get out of my, get out of them old habits and that old way of thinking and all of that. It takes a lot of bravery to sort of work on something that you dream of, especially if you're coming from an environment where not many people are doing that, right? So a lot of people that we know are very content with just going to work, coming home, going to bed, getting up and doing it all over again. And so to be the person who is sort of going after your dreams where others may not see it for themselves, it's kind of scary, right? It is kind of scary. It is kind of nerve-wracking and all of that. But sometimes you have to be that beacon. And sometimes you have to move forward no matter what your environment looks like. So I think one of the hang-ups that I had early on with starting the project was I was like, I don't know what people are going to think, when they see the work that I want to put up. Especially, I think sometimes we get in our heads about people that we may have known growing up, people from our hometowns and all of that. Half them folks ain't doing nothing. You know what I'm saying? Half them folks ain't doing a doggone thing with themselves. So you cannot allow their opinions or the possibility of their negative opinions affecting the way that you move forward. You kind of have to go forward anyway, even if you're still in your hometown, even if you still sort of live in the space and around those same people that you grew up with. Sometimes you have to just do it anyway, right? And be scared. It's okay to be afraid to start new things. It's okay to be afraid to be new at something, which is something that I know a lot of us, especially as we get older, our egos and stuff like that get in the way and we're afraid to be students all over again. It's perfectly all right to be a student, right? Which again was one of the reasons why I enjoy photography club so much, and why I was so interested in the class that we had yesterday was because although I have been in lots and lots of spaces and heard lots and lots of presentations on certain topics, there's always room to learn more, right? Especially as our world changes, especially as consumerism changes and all of that, and people's buying and spending habits change. It's really good to sort of hear other people's perspective of how they're navigating this new landscape of, sort of this creative space, especially as creatives. So one of the issues that I know a lot of people are running into as creatives is sort of competing and comparing with AI generated work. That to me is not something I've worried about too much, but I can kind of see why some people would feel sort of like they're trying to catch up. Now, it has dampened sort of some markets. So for instance, a lot of the people that I would work with who had never hired graphic designers and illustrators before, which made up a good chunk of my clientele, who had maybe saved up to work with me and whatever the case was, a lot of them are going the DIY route to AI, and that's perfectly okay. To me, that means that I have to work to reach the people that I should have been working to reach anyway, just to balance those things out. So there's a lot going on in the creative space. So just sort of to hear how others are navigating that as they move forward, and also to be encouraged that people are still thriving in creativity, right? People are still thriving as illustrators. People are still thriving as graphic designers and the whole lot, and there is so much activism around AI that I feel like it is quite encouraging. I think that it is one of those things that I don't feel what am I trying to say? It is one of those things that I feel like the people who are affected by it should be compensated. Let's say that for a fact, right? It is one of those things that I feel that if you've had your work stolen, if you've had people put your shit through, put your stuff through a generator and all of that, you should absolutely be compensated. And for me, I don't understand sort of why that has not happened yet, right? I do understand, and unfortunately, why some people tend to go towards that particular medium. I think a lot of it comes down with ignorance. I think a lot of people just don't understand sort of the nuance of it, why people are so upset about it, right? I also feel like a lot of those people, in their minds, it is the easiest way for them to access art. Now, whether I agree with that or not, I absolutely do not, but I do understand it, right? I can kind of see where everyone's perspective is. It is not something that I use. It is not something that I ever use in terms of creating artwork. Now, I have used Perplexity to do research. So if I'm doing research, I'm trying to figure out certain things and I need a group of like links, I'll do it for that. That is something that is very true to me, right? If I am trying to figure out what are the steps to like get to publishing through a library, I'll do that, and then I'll use those resources and go to the actual source of that information. Same with Google. I don't see them the same. Google and AI are definitely not the same, but I do use it as an advanced sort of market research tool, right? But when it comes to generative AI, when it comes to creating images from stolen images, when it comes to creating music from stolen music, that is something that I am extremely against. Let me say that before I get super tongue-tied. But I do understand it. So a lot of the people that I used to service are going that route. And that is displacing a lot of artists, especially younger artists, especially people who are new to creativity and new to doing commissions and things like that. There is a displacement. But I think in that becoming or sort of leaning into your hand created craft is going to be a superpower. I really feel that way. I think that it is going to be one of those things where it is going to be extremely valuable to know that you spent hours on an illustration, right? It is going to be extremely valuable to be the person who can tailor an illustration to your client's specifications, and you can make tweaks where those generative AI engines cannot, right? Now, whether they'll get to that place, I don't know. I try not to concern myself too much with what the possibility is, but I think as artists, it is going to be our superpower to show our process. And I know that a lot of people are very against showing the process of creating. I've always been pro process. I've made hundreds of videos at this point on showing the process of my creativity. You kind of have to get out of your sort of fear and ego mindset, thinking that people are going to steal your process. Just show it, right? Show the people that you have this skill. Show the people that you know what you're talking about when you go into these meetings with folks that, may feel like, may feel unsure about what it is that you do. Now, that doesn't mean that you should be tap dancing on the dime. Somebody say, hey, draw me this and draw me that. Absolutely not, right? You build up your portfolio. to show that you are capable and skilled and have expertise in whatever your medium is. But I feel like showing the process, even if it's just clips and work in progresses and things like that, I feel like that is going to become where not traditional artists, but where artists, right, shine. And so don't be afraid to do that. Now, maybe one of these days I will show you guys sort of how I edit process videos and how I set up to film. I have not done it in so long in terms of filming actual art outside of filming my screen. One of the reasons that I stopped doing it on screen so much, as much as I used to, was because the computer that I had at the time just could not handle it. So you have to find ways to sort of be creative when you have those limitations, just to sort of show yourself drawing, right? Show yourself drawing and all those things. Now, I've seen people get accused of AI that have been drawing for years. I'm thankful that I have not had that experience yet. I think that is one of those things. Hey, Black Z2. I think that is one of those things that is just going to be very important for us to be able to show your process. And again, I think that is going to add value to what it is that you do. Now, you don't have to. I know that there's plenty of people who feel like I don't want to do it because I shouldn't have to. If you feel that way, then that's absolutely going to be true for you. That's okay. But I feel like showing the process, kind of showing people what you do, your thoughts behind your pieces, right? Your ideas, how you came to certain things. I think to me, one, is interesting, and that maybe I'm just a little bit biased. It's very interesting, but also that it's just going to be where we're going to shine, right? Where we're going to stand out against sort of the microwave, I call them microwave images, right? That's where you're going to shine against those microwave images. And then also for the people who are leaning into that, and maybe you're feeling like, why didn't they hire me? Those aren't your clients anyway, right? Because clearly they don't value or maybe can't afford to hire you as an artist. So to me, that, I don't know, you can't kind of be too offended by people's choices. All we can do is sort of educate from our point of view and then just take care of ourselves, right? That's kind of how you have to approach it. Now, I do know that organizations such as the Graphic Artists Guild, there are a few other organizations that do quite a lot of work for advocacy for artists, specifically those who have been affected by AI, because the way that they train. So let's break this down. So a lot of people in the sort of AI space feel like they're not harming anybody, right? Outside from the environmental things, which I don't have a whole lot of knowledge about. I just know that they have these, because we have an XAI here in Memphis. I know that they are tapping into a lot of natural resources in terms of water, just to cool down the GPUs, right? Just to cool down the facilities. And that is very, very taxing. That is as much information on that I have, right? But when it comes to the actual generative AI, so these cartoon memes that you see, these sort of profile pictures that you see, all of these things, the way that they trained these images was they scraped the internet, right? They scraped people's artwork and they fed them into this machine, or into sort of an algorithm or a computer program, or however you want to phrase it to make you feel good, right? So they fed all these images into the machine. They did not ask, right, the people whose images they took to train the models how to create images. They didn't ask that. They have not compensated those people of that. Some of the artists are living, some of them are not. Some of them are from sort of classical works. Some of them are as recent as people who are on the internet right now, right? So they took all this artwork, fed it into the machine. So when you type in a prompt, it is pulling from all of these different people's artwork to create whatever image it is that you're telling it to create. That is how it works. Now, if it had been that these people, the people who were whose art has been used to train AI, that they had been compensated, that they had been asked permission to, that they had been given the option to opt out of, I think the conversation around it would be extremely different, right? I think we would be having a completely different conversation about it. I might even agree that people would be more accepting and welcoming of it. But the fact that it has been sort of built on theft, right, is the problem. That is the issue. Now, in terms of copyrighting those images, we do have protection from the Copyright Office. If you are someone who is creating a coloring book, if you're creating a children's book, if you're creating t-shirts, whatever you're doing from an AI generated piece of work, or a sort of conglomeration image, right? You cannot copyright that information, right? So give you a great example of how this works or how this to me is ironic. So I'll be on the internet, right, as I be, and there's a young lady who I feel like her name is Solar Being or something like that. She designed these Star Puff Afro puffs, right? And they're real cute. I always see her. She reminds me of one of my nieces. Real sweet. She seems like a real sweet girl. She created these Star Puffs, and her whole idea was to create sort of these fun shapes for people to take pride in their natural hair. Fantastic, right? There's another creator who I think's name is Queen Ava or something like that, who also sculpts her hair. She sculpts her hair in things like Rubik's Cubes and lizards and TVs and all of these different things. Both of which are pulling from sculpted hair from ancient times. This is not a new practice. This is not an exclusive practice. Whatever happened, one of them is suing the other one, or tried to sue the other one and tried to copyright the other, and it's a whole bunch of stuff, right? So the person who was suing said that the one with the Star Puffs infringed on her copyrights, and this is her whole thing. She infringed on my copyrights, this, that, and the third. I don't necessarily agree with her argument, but that is her argument. Now, what she did, the one with the Star Puff says, well, she makes a video, says, I'm going to create a children's book, and we're going to work on it, and we're going to draw it, and we're going to make sure that kids feel included and proud of their hair. The one who's suing says, okay, bet, I'm going to create a book, and she puts it out within like a week or so. It didn't take her long at all. Now, when you look at the book, it is clearly AI generated artwork. The irony is that she is suing for copyright for something, but creating something that she cannot copyright. So if the one that's getting sued decides, you know what, I'm gonna sell Ava's book, she can do that legally, right? Because the AI generated work cannot be copyrighted. So if you're out here making and I know when it really first sort of got super popular and everybody was on it and doing those like the face trend and all of that, there was a lot of videos that popped up for how you can make a coloring book and how you can make a children's book using AI and all these things. Now, if you do that, what those people didn't know, or maybe they could at the time, but what ended up happening was that those people cannot copyright their images. What does that mean, right? So that sounds like, okay, well, whoop-de-doo, they can't copyright it. That means that if I see something someone do, and I wouldn't, because I'm not for it, right? But if I saw something that I liked that somebody did in AI, I can go and make stickers of it and sell them at comic book conventions or wherever. Because for what? You right? You can't copyright. They don't own it. If you see something, and I don't, again, definitely don't encourage any of this, but that is sort of the gist of it. You can kind of take and sell other people's things. Now, if you're creating something from hand, such as this duck that we're working on off and on, you cannot steal this, right? You can't do that without there being legal representations and repercussions, because I'm recording myself creating it. I have files that date back to the time that this file was created. I have all of these backups that says that, hey, I, Brittany Lewis, created this image and the copyright belongs to me. There are also legal protections that you can take by actually going through the copyright process and all of that. So your handmade art is going to be, again, more valuable. It is definitely going to be protected under the law. And it is something that I feel like a lot of the people who are sort of going into this, into the AI and are arguing, well, it's making art more accessible. I just feel like all you have to do is try, right? All you have to do is make art. All you have to do is take a lesson. There's so many free resources to teach you how to draw. There are places like this one where I'll kind of walk you through what I'm doing, which we haven't done yet, but walk you through the process of what I'm doing. You can watch or whatever the case is, if that is something that you're genuinely interested in. So it's a whole thing, you know what I mean? And it has definitely changed the landscape of how we approach creating art, sharing art, which has been a little bit nerve-wracking in terms of making sure that the art that you share isn't going to be fed through an AI machine or algorithm to then be added to the list of resources that people can steal from. It's a whole thing, right? It's a whole thing. But even in that, I feel like it's going to be very important that you continue to create. That's going to be the main thing. Keep creating. You cannot be they can replicate your style. They cannot replicate your thoughts. They cannot replicate your ideas. They cannot do that, right? So keep creating, but also don't be afraid to share the process, even if it's sharing your growth. So even if you are new to creating artwork, even if this is a very new venture and you're learning how to draw from point A to some of the classical master's work, share that progress, right? Share that process. That story to me is far more endearing than watching like the AI stuff come out, right? Which is always weird. Like I saw one today where it was I think it was a person who was standing, and it was two people, and the person behind them had like an extra leg, and I couldn't pay attention to what the message was because all I kept seeing was this weird anomaly in the image, right? So continue to create. It is going to, it may feel discouraging depending on how much attention that you give to it, but I think it is, again, important that you keep creating, keep sharing the process, and just keep being yourself, right? Keep developing your own style, which is going to come with practice and patience and all of that. And then again, be transparent about what it is that you do. So well, first of all, let me take a pause and thank you guys, whether you're watching this live or the replay. I appreciate y'all for being here. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up. That helps me out a whole lot. Now, what I am doing on the screen, which I have not talked a whole lot about, I'm just kind of laying down color, and I'm doing it a little bit rougher than I think I like. I probably switched to a different brush because the reference that I'm drawing is relatively smooth, and the chalk brush that I'm using to lay down the colors is not. So it's giving me a texture that I may not stick with. I don't know yet. But what I'm doing is just kind of laying in color. I'm not being super precious about it. I am drawing from reference, of course, but I'm giving myself room to sort of be, right? And be creative, and just to kind of show the colors and the changes in the colors and all of that. But I don't necessarily have to be exact. It just needs to look like a duck, right? I also am keeping in mind that this is going to be printed relatively small. So we are designing this image for print, meaning that the goal is to have this, of course, be a card. This is going to be printed on a slightly larger than standard tarot card. So this is going to be printed similar to a deck of cards, just taller and a little bit wider. So I don't have to be extremely diligent about the details of it unless I plan to blow this up. Now, I do create at a very large resolution so that I can use the art in other sort of aspects, which is the power of being the creative, right? It's the power of sort of creating things by hand, is that you can do whatever you want to do with it, and you own the rights to do that. So if I decide to make this a canvas print, some of these details and things that you'll see will actually help, because they'll help sort of make it look, the way that I would like for it to look, good and polished and all of those things. But I don't have to be super duper particular about the details, right? Just kind of got to get the colors right, and the placement of them right, and have this look like there are curves, and make it look three-dimensional. So what I'm doing now is I'm kind of smoothing out that texture that I got from the chalk brush and making it look a little bit smoother. Again, I want to pay attention to where light and shadow hits on my reference, because that is important to letting us know how the form sort of moves and folds and all of that. So again, I hope y'all had a great week this week. So next Wednesday, again, we're going to be working on the 5 of Wands, and I'm going to show you that here in a bit. I'm actually going to go in a second and grab this painting that I worked on, because I want to show you guys a sneak peek. So we're 46 minutes in. Okay, hold on one second. I'm gonna go grab it. Hold on. Okay. So we're 46 minutes in. That means that you have to have watched the whole thing to see this. So this is going to be a sneak peek. So earlier I spoke a little bit about working with acrylic markers for the first time and doing a portrait of it. It is a self-portrait. The reference for this image I took in 2018. And this is how it turned out. I don't know if you guys can see that. I'm so excited about it. She's so cute. Hey, girl. I'm really, really excited about that. So the video that I'm working on editing and will be doing the voiceover for today is for this illustration. And I'll zoom in. I know that it's picking up because the camera has a tracker on it, right? Where it will zoom in on a face. It's actually tracking this like a face. So I'm really excited about that. So I really, really like how this turned out. I was able to use, again, the 48 pack of markers, but I also had to use color pencils in order for me to get sort of the colors that I needed, right? Because I was working again within some limits. But I'm really excited with the way that turned out. So if you made it this far in the stream, that was a sneak peek we'll do. And if not, then we ain't gonna worry too much about it. But I am super excited about that. So I'm really, really excited to show you guys sort of how I navigated that new medium. Now that was a medium again that I had not used before. I've never used acrylic markers before. I am very well versed in acrylic paints though. So I wanted to approach it similar to acrylic paints. But because I was limited in the palette and also unable to mix colors, I had to get very, very creative about how I represented light and shadow in that particular illustration. So be on the lookout for that. Hopefully I'll have that video up this week. I'm real excited about it. It was so soothing. So I used to work in 3 mediums. I would do digital art, which is what we're doing now. I would do acrylic paintings, so usually it would be portraits because that's just my favorite thing to do. I would do acrylic portraits, and then I would do these India ink portraits. So they would be somewhat similar to watercolors, where you have to build the darkness up, so you have to start very, very light and then sort of build your values up. And so since I've been working on this particular project, I have not spent a whole lot of time doing the other 2 mediums. So I've been working almost exclusively in digital for the last 5 or 6 years or so. I'll do a painting here and there. Like the last large painting that I did was 2024. So toward the end of 2024. So it's been a really long time since I worked sort of on a finished piece in a traditional medium. So having those markers, and I'm gonna show you again because it looked like somebody else just came through. Look what I did. I did that. I did. She cute. Hey girl. Yeah. So I did that particular picture. And so anyway, working in those traditional mediums was really nice. And I think that I was a little bit nervous about not being able to go from digital back into traditional, but it was not very difficult at all. And I think that might be in part from the way that I do digital work. I paint on an elevated surface, and that's how I paint in canvas, and that's how I paint on my actual sort of pen display that you guys can't see. So what I do is on a canvas or on sort of a drawing, for me, I have to sort of paint elevated. It doesn't have to be straight up and down. Generally when I'm doing like full paintings, it is straight up and down because it's on a easel, but I paint sort of on an elevated surface, and then that allows me to kind of see proportions a lot clearer. On my pen display, it's still elevated, but it's slightly tilted down. That is really nice just because of the way that I'm set up at my desk. But that it just was a nice experience. So I was feeling like maybe I was going to have a hard time sort of jumping back into traditional medium because I spent so much time drawing on the computer, but it was nice. It was really, really nice. And I think again, one of the things that I will do, I have a painting that I am like an actual painting. I'm going to show you guys how I plan for it and sort of walk you through that process as well. So we'll mix it up here on this channel quite a bit more than we have been. So for those of you who are just interested in different kinds of art and just sort of watching again the creation process, or interested in any aspect of that, I'm going to be showing you quite a bit more of that. Now once it gets a little bit warmer, we'll get into learning landscapes, which is something I've been talking about for a while, just because that is the medium or the sort of genre of art that I'm not super great with. I can manage, right? I do pretty okay, but I'm not able to sort of get the look of landscape the way that I would like without spending like 1,000 hours on it. Right? So I'm going to be practicing that a bit, but I want to do it once it's warmer so I can actually go out and draw sort of outside, right? As opposed to sort of drawing from photo reference, because we can do that. So be on the lookout for that. But I'm super excited to be able to share sort of other sort of aspects of the art that I create, other things that I love, some of the things that I would like to experiment. And I think that will help me out as well, because again, that's going to give me balance. That's going to allow me to sort of spend some time away from my desk a little bit. I had a whole setup. I have there's a different space that I use to create like the traditional paintings and things like that. So I had like my light set up, I had my camera set up. It's going to be really nice. So I was able to get some really good overhead shots to show you guys like what I was from like the top down, right? So I'm excited just to show you guys what that looks like, and to show you some of the other things that I have interest in. Also, I have art supplies that are like at least 10 years old. At least I got art supplies that are so doggone old. Some of the color pencils that I used in the self-portrait that I had just completed were pencils that I had. I know I bought 2016 that I had never used, right? The other pack, I have two packs. I have a cheaper, very inexpensive pack from a brand called Soho, which is sold by Jerry's Autorama. And then I have the Faber-Castell pack, which is a little more expensive. What I'm finding as a trend from the markers to the colored pencils, again, I had this stuff, but I had never just really looked at it or used it or anything like that. What I found was that there is a lack of like dark colors, right? So you have to be very creative about how you illustrate richer skin tones with the color palettes that were available. So with the Soho pack, for example, there were no browns at all. I think they both were 36 pack of pencils, color pencils. The cheaper pack had absolutely no browns. I don't even think it's missing two, so it's probably green, but I don't remember what those colors were. But it had no browns in it. The Faber-Castell pack was a little more nuanced, so it did a whole lot better, and that definitely helped me sort of pick up the skin tones and things like that. But the marker pack that I was using as the primary sort of vehicle for color on that particular portrait was very limited. And because I was working on a toned background, that kind of made things even more challenging. So I'll have those thoughts in that video up this week, fingers crossed. I'm really excited about that. So I'll show you guys what that looks like, just to kind of again give you a different sort of some different art, right, to kind of give myself some balance in the art that I create as well, and to allow myself to express my artistic abilities in different ways, so that you guys can kind of see what that looks like from a much more well-rounded perspective, because a lot of what I do is so geared towards the Cosmic Gateways Tarot that you guys don't get to see too much else, right? So I want to show you guys some of the other things that I have planned and in store. Something else, because I have to update my website, because I will be adding sort of some examples of book covers and things like that, because that is the service that I would like to lean more into, publishing, doing book covers and interiors and children's book illustrations and graphic novels and all of that. I will be creating some of that stuff, and we'll probably do that during the Wednesday streams, but I'll be creating some of that stuff with you guys so you kind of see the process of that as well. So for instance, I have a collection of books that I'm reading from Brandon Sanderson. I'm reading the Stormlight Archive, and when I was on book 2 of that Stormlight Archive, one of the it just fell apart. Right, it was a mass market copy, and it just kind of fell apart. And I was like, you know what? It might be fun to redesign the book cover for this, because there's one particular scene I was like, dang, that would be a good book cover. There's one particular scene in this particular book that I would like to actually illustrate. So I'll show you some of that as well, just to kind of again give you some variety, to kind of see what you can do with your art as well, some of the things that you can create. And I think that you guys might enjoy that. I don't know, we'll see. You'll have to let me know what it is that you enjoy. But if you do enjoy these kinds of videos, be sure to hit the like button, and of course to subscribe, because I do stream twice a week. So now again, on this duck, right, while I'm running off at the mouth, I am putting in the base colors. I'm not worrying too much about it being perfect or anything like that. Again, I'm just kind of putting in these colors, and I can always go back over them and smudge. If I were doing this traditionally with acrylic paintings, with acrylic paints, even oil paints, with oils you can rework them a little bit more than you can with acrylic. With acrylic, what I would do is I would actually do this in layers. So I would lay down my shadow colors, and then I would take that shadow color and I would lighten it just slightly to a slightly, just a slightly lighter color. And then I would blend that out, and that would give me a smooth transition between the colors on the palette. So that's how I would operate in that way. But with digital, we do have a few more freedoms in terms of being able to move color around. It's not a perfect medium. There definitely is work involved, right, in getting the results that you want. If you guys have seen, as you've watched me create these cards over the last couple of years, there are a lot of steps. There's definitely a process, and there's definitely progress. Sometimes slower than others. Some cards take a lot longer than others. But all of it is part of the process, right? So you have to be patient with the process, and also try things as you're creating in whichever medium, especially in digital. Try things that are slightly out of the ordinary, right? So you may have a brush that is meant for, I don't know, speckles or like half tones. You can use that to create stars, right? Or if you have a brush that's meant for leaves, you can use that to create texture in the dress. So it gives us a little more creative freedom in that, but it is a matter of being patient with yourself and being patient with your process. So here in a bit, I am going to turn off my sketch so that you guys can see the process, or the progress I should say, because I've said process a lot, but see the progress of what I'm creating, and then we'll be able to move forward from there. So, all right. So what I'm doing now is I am going to go ahead and put in this last little shadow. And then again, we're going to turn off the sketch. Then we'll see what we have. And that'll give us an opportunity to see what it is that we need to improve on. All right. So I hope you guys again are having a great week. I hope that you've spent some time doing the thing that you want to do in your life, doing the things that you want to, that you dream of, right? Doing the things that you have to do. It's always going to be things that we're going to have to do in this life, always going to be responsibilities and things like that. So you have to make time to do the stuff that you want to do. All right. So this is with the sketch off. That looks pretty good. Now what I'm going to do, because I'm super zoomed in, I'm in this thing pretty tough. What I'm going to do is actually zoom out so that I can see what this looks like in the grander scheme of things. Again, this particular image is about grief, right? It is about grief. It is about loss. It is about paying attention to that feeling and sort of being stuck in that feeling. But if our main character were to stand up, they would see so much wealth and richness behind them, and that is sort of the idea behind these images. That's why I picked elements when in the background that were gold, because to me gold gives a very rich not antique but like ancestral richness and wealth. So I wanted the things to be gold. I wanted it to feel very luxurious and bright and welcoming and inviting, but all she has to do is stand up. So it's right now she's in it. Right, she's smack on the floor with her spilled cups. But if she stands up, she'll see so many things that may make her life better, right? That may sort of add value to her life. But as we're looking at this duck in the background, it does look pretty good. I ain't gonna lie to you. It looked pretty good. Now, from here, I have to decide if I want to add the details like the little stripes in his feathers and on his beak. That may not be, it might be a goose now that I'm looking at it. But I don't think that is necessary. I think what we have so far, because these are so small, might be all that we need. So I'm going to move on to the second duck. And I'm going to follow the exact same process where I tighten up the flats a little bit, and then I start to add light and shadow to create form, and then we'll move around so that next Sunday when we come back, hopefully we'll have all of the odds and ends in the background done. So that'll include the books, the little vase, the plates, and all of that. And we'll start to work more on the foreground. And we'll get to my favorite aspect of an illustration, which is working on the person, right? So I will say this. When I started this project, I would have told you that doing objects was not my strong suit. Just like I tell you guys that environments are not something that I'm super strong in. Like I can make it do what it do, right? But those aren't necessarily where my strength lies. Of course, my strength lies in faces and people and things like that. This is what I'm really naturally good at. But there was a time in my artistic career and journey where I was not great with drawing objects. And so to see these objects look as good as they are and to progressively look good as we move from card to card makes my heart smile, because that means that I have definitely grown as an artist. And what's trippy to me is that I can actually see the growth. Now, that is something that I also have to sort of contend with, because I've been working on this project for so long. one of the thoughts that I got hung up on in my mind was whether or not there would be a huge difference between the car, like my very first card, like the quality of it, the artistic expression of it, how I sort of drew fingers and things like that, versus how I do those things 6 years later. So that was something that I had to sort of move past, because once I sort of looked at where I started versus where I am now, to me there is definitely a progression of growth, but not so much where it's striking, right? It still looks like the same artist did all the work, but I can certainly feel sort of the growth in how I express myself through my artwork, and I can definitely see it, right? I can see it, I can feel it when I am creating different things. For instance, when I was working on a cowboy from my Six of Wands, which I'll show you guys here in a bit, I could tell that, like, you know, I was having a very easy time working on his face. Like, it was just so easy for me to do, and it didn't take a whole lot of doing to create the expression that I wanted, to create the shadows that I wanted. It just came together really, really good. And I think I saw that with the Four of Cups. I noticed it with the Four of Cups. I was like, you know what? I might be growing a little bit, you know? And so that's pretty exciting. Now, again, as someone who has been a professional artist since 2008, I am not beyond growth. I am not beyond learning. And I think as creatives, that's something that we kind of have to stay in the space of, because when we get too serious, when we get too like, I know it all, it takes a little bit of the fun away from it, because you're not as open to experimenting and trying new things and learning from other artists and creatives and just the world at large. And I think that kind of stifles your own growth, right? So I'm always a student. I always see myself as a student as I grow as a professional artist, as a creative in general. And so I take every opportunity to learn. So earlier we were talking a whole lot about being able to learn from every experience that we have, from people that we have contact with, from lessons that we learn, not from lessons that we learn, but just we're able to learn those lessons, right? From every experience that we have. Sometimes I am looking for the lesson, right? Sometimes I'm very deliberate about what can I learn from this experience. So drawing back to the photography club, which I went to yesterday, and sat through a presentation that, again, I didn't necessarily get what I thought I would get from that presentation. I did learn something, and I think that's because I approached it with an open mind, even after sort of seeing sort of where this particular entrepreneur was in their journey compared to where I was in my journey. I was still able to sort of learn from this person and from this presentation. So each opportunity we have, each experience that we have, each person that we meet, each conversation that we have gives us an opportunity to learn something new, whether that is something about yourself, right? Something about that person, something about the world at large, something that may have relate to something that you were talking about 15 years ago. You know what I mean? That's kind of how life works, as long as you're open to that, right? Now, when you get to the space where I know it all, you know what I mean? And I don't want to hear it. And sometimes it's like that, depending on who you're talking to, right? Sometimes you just don't want to hear it. And that's perfectly fair and valid and all that. I ain't knocking it. But so long as you keep an open mind, I feel like the world is always going to give you opportunities to learn, to grow, and expand. Hopefully without the pain of doing so, hopefully without going through the growing pains and all of that. All right, so what I'm doing again is I'm just going to blocking in colors. I'm going to block in colors as close to, I'm just picking them up straight from the reference. Now, because this picture is pixelated, it's going to pick up, it's like a whole bunch of colors in a small area, right? So I'm just going to pick up a color that looks to be about what I want to achieve. I'm going to plant that in here, and then I'm going to move on. Again, I'm not necessarily reaching for perfection at this stage of the process. I do want to draw on colors that look, you know, fairly similar. Again, that's going to reinforce the fact that this is a shiny object. This is a three-dimensional object and all that. So I want to make sure that I have all of the curves and all of the light placed where I want it to be. And then I'm not going to worry too much about being exact, right? I'm not going to worry about that. It's going to look as good as it's going to look. As so long as I am sort of being very deliberate about light and shadow, just kind of following the guideline, but not being too strict on what it is that I'm doing, to open myself up to wonderful, happy accidents, right? So that's what, to me, creativity is all about, sort of being expressive and not being too hung up on pleasing everyone. That is very important to kind of to kind of stay in the mind of, you're not going to please everybody with the things that you create. That is something that I learned as I started this project, or something that I was afraid of, because again, the art that I was creating at the time, which was back 2019, 2018, 2019, was very mass market oriented, because the space that I was selling my artwork was a mass market space, right? So a lot of that was in comic book conventions. So even when I would do comic covers for independent creators, most of them would be independent creators, it still had a mass appeal to it, because the idea is to sell the comic to as many people as possible. But when it came to starting to work on this project, one of the things that I feared and was worried about was how it would appeal to people. But what I came to learn was that it's not necessarily that I want to reach everyone. I want to reach the right people, right? So I want to reach people who enjoy this kind of artwork, who want to see themselves represented in these very magical and spiritual spaces. That is who I would like to reach, right? And whoever doesn't sort of fit that mold, that's okay. That's all right. Right? So I give you a great example of this, or how this showed up for me and sort of reinforced this lesson. So early on in this project, I would say maybe about year 1 or 2, 2020, somewhere between 2020 and 2021, I would say, there was people were sharing these cards, right, in tarot groups and things like that, which please do let people know about this project. And so there was a person that I knew, or didn't know. I actually didn't know her, but she was very helpful in sharing the cards and getting it out, and letting people know that this project was in the works and all of that. Now at the time I was working on the major arcana cards, and of course everybody in this deck is black. Even the Temperance, which looks like 2 white folks, they're albino black people, right? Everybody in this deck is black. And in a lot of decks it is not the case, right? In most decks that are on the market, you might have 1 or 2 of you lucky, and it depends on the deck creator and all of that. But everybody in this deck is black, and that is on purpose. So my images were being shared in a group, and I guess this one lady got tired of seeing all these beautiful images, and she ain't seeing herself. But she wasn't the black woman, she just didn't see herself, and that was okay, right? Now, I'm going to preface this to say that even though all the images are black, it's for whoever resonates with this deck. If you like this deck and you want to buy this deck, baby, it is for you, right? But this woman felt offended that she was seeing all these images, and this is exactly the message that she was sending. She was like, I see all these pictures, but I don't see any white people. And she was trying to race bait me, right? So the lady that was posting and sharing the artwork in these groups, she messaged me. She was like, listen, don't respond. I was like, hey, I ain't studying, you know what I mean? But she was like, don't respond. I'll ask, I'll take care of it. And so the conversation came that this woman was very offended that there were no white people in this space, but she didn't ever say anything about the decks that were being posted that didn't feature other ethnicities, right? And so in my mind, I was like, okay, it's okay. If it's not for her, it's not for her. It's just not for her. You know what I mean? If she feels offended by it, if she feels like she doesn't see herself beyond the skin color, if she doesn't see herself as a magical, goddess with all of these attributes and all of the different archetypes that were being represented, then that's absolutely okay. All she could see was the race, right? So you're going to have moments where you're going to create things and not everyone is going to love it. And that's okay, right? That is perfectly okay. We kind of have to make peace with the fact that not everything is for everyone. And that is perfectly valid. And that is perfectly okay. That does not mean that you change your art to suit that person that may not be happy about it, right? It just means that that's not for them. You know what I mean? They didn't like it. And she didn't like it at all, and so that's okay. So once you make peace with that, you get a lot more freedom in what you create, and it's just a much more liberating situation to be in, because now you're creating work and you're not really concerned about who's going to like it, because you know that you like it, and that means that someone else out there is going to resonate with it. Now we have access to billions of people in the world through our cell phones and through the internet. Now the internet is not the only place that you'll want to market and show your work off, but because we have access to so many people, you're going to find ways to reach people who resonate with the things that you create, So you don't have to worry about the folks you grew up with who don't understand what you want to do, right? You don't have to worry about your co-workers who don't see it for you, or your aunts and uncles who don't see it for you, them childhood friends who don't see it for you. It doesn't even matter, because you're going to reach the people who are going to resonate with the thing that you create, right? So that is sort of the philosophy that I take. Some of you guys, some of y'all are all over the place. Sometimes when I look at my analytics, I have people who email me from Australia. I have people who email me from the UK, from all over the United States, from the Southern Hemisphere, all of these different places. So that means that I'm reaching people in all of these pockets of the world who resonate with the things that I create. So it doesn't, to me, matter if, for instance, the people in Memphis don't get it. I don't care. Right? You know what I mean? It's not going to be exclusive to Memphis. Now, not to say that that is the case, because I have had nothing but love when it comes to me sharing my art locally, which is always a great place to start. But if it was one of those things where locally people didn't get it, maybe you live in a small town and you're the oddball and nobody understands the work that you're creating, the stories that you're telling, the photography that you do, whatever your thing is, then move out of that. You don't have to physically move, but sort of reach other places through however you have to do that, whether that is doing shows out of town for a weekend, whether that is doing online meetups, or whatever the case is, networking in that way. Chances are you're going to find people who are going to resonate with the thing that you do. That's just kind of how it goes, right? So sometimes as artists, especially in like spiritual spaces, not even art related, sometimes there is a I-ness to people's personality, that I am making this thing and I am the only special, glorious, I'm the one, Neo, right? I am the one. In this case, chances are, if you feel a certain way, if there's something that you want to see, there are going to be other ones, right? There are going to be other people who are going to want to see it the way that you create it, right? So that is something that I hold on dear to when it comes to this particular project. And I have been so fortunate to meet some of you guys and to have people like yourselves that resonate with the artwork. You don't mind me chattering 90 miles an hour as we talk about whatever it is that comes up. So I wholeheartedly believe that whatever it is that you choose to do, you're going to find your audience for it. And the reason I know this, right, there's an audience for everything, is that for the things that you can't stand, that you see, that you hear music wise, the movies, all of that, there's somebody out there that like it. Right? I can guarantee you. So there's going to be someone out there who, again, likes the things that you create, and that is perfectly okay and should be motivation for you to just tell your authentic story. Who are you, right? Who is Brittany? Who am I artistically? Who am I through this spiritual journey? Those are the questions that I have answered as I am creating this deck. Some of those answers came with painful lessons. You know what I mean? Some of those answers came with realizations that I may not have been ready for, but that is sort of part of the process, and that is part of the story that I can tell within these cards. So that gives it a very personal touch, right? So I'm not just creating pretty cards, I'm not just creating a tarot deck because it sounds like a cool project. It is a cool project, right? But I'm also sort of relating myself back to the stories, sort of thinking about how these instances, especially when it comes to the minor arcana cards, how those are expressed in everyday life, right? And that is how we move forward. All right, so I am going to probably wrap it up here. Now, be on the lookout this week. If you guys are still here watching live, thank you so much for being here. But be on the lookout this week. I am going to be posting a long form video of me trying out those acrylic markers for the first time. I got to do the voiceover, and I probably waited too long because I finished this painting like last week sometime, and I should have did the voiceover then. So I'm me talking it out through this live is sort of me arranging my mind what I want to say in the voiceover. So I don't know yet if I want to do a critique of the markers or just tell you the backstory of the picture that I painted, or how I make certain colors. I don't know, we'll figure it out. But this week, be on the lookout for that particular video. I'm super excited to share it. I've been really wanting to sort of show y'all this picture, so for those of you who were here live while I showed it, I'm so glad you got to see it. If not, you have to go back and watch the whole thing so that you guys can see the image that I'm speaking of. But be on the lookout for that video. Some of the other videos that I have in the works or that I have planned is I'm going to be working on a larger acrylic painting. This painting is going to be about a 24 by 36. So I'm going to show you how I plan for that digitally, right? So I'm going to actually plan for it digitally do some color studies and things like that as I kind of figure out how I want it to be represented. I know exactly what I want to paint in terms of like the subjects of the painting, but I don't know colors, color stories. I don't know what I want to do in terms of the background and all of that. So I'm going to walk you through that whole process, and we're going to figure that out together. So I'll be showing you that. Once it gets warmer, we're going to do some work in trying to figure out how to do landscapes in a very stylized way. Think Ghibli films. So those of you who are familiar with like Spirited Away and My Neighbor Totoro and Howl's Moving Castle and all that, if you ever paid attention to those scenes, Princess Mononoke, all of those, like the landscapes of those, that's kind of what I would love to learn to do. Right? So that as I'm painting and creating landscapes, it still has the it looks realistic, but it still has the very illustrated, stylized look to it. That is my goal and my aim. So I'm going to show you guys how I learned to do that, right? A little bit. And I may show like still shots of the movies just so you guys can kind of see. But my goal there with studying landscapes is to actually get out in them, right? To go outside, to actually sort of paint what I see the same way that I do portraits and things like that, just so I can get better at it as an artist, to make just this project better, but of course the art that I create from there even better. So we'll be doing that as the temperatures and things like that warm up. I'm going to probably share with y'all some of my photography. I don't know. We'll see. That's just a hobby there. But there's so much more coming for this channel. I'm super excited about it. So again, if you like these kinds of videos, if you're interested in the things that I have planned for us, book covers, all of that, all of the things that I have to do, I figured why not film it and share with y'all the process of me doing that and getting it together. Be sure to hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more of that. And be sure to like the video as well, because that pushes this out to more people. If you have thoughts and comments on anything that we talked about today, please be sure to leave them in the comments below or in the chat before we sign off. But certainly in the comments, I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions, how your life is going, what dream projects you're working on, and all of those wonderful things. And until next time, I hope to see you guys on Wednesday for Bring Your Own Project Live. Oh, before we go, hold on. Let me show y'all the progress before we go. So we're going to be working on the 5 of Wands Wednesday for Bring Your Own Project Live. And I just want to show you where we are on this particular image. Again, I'm working 2 cards at a time, and I'm also doing other stuff. So even though I'm working 2 cards at a time, I'm not working so much on the days that I'm not streaming on them. So I'm having to make sure that I'm very deliberate about the time that I spend making these cards happen, so that I could get to my goal of 15 cards. So that I can again balance all that out. But as soon as this loads, I'll show you guys what that looks like, and then we're gonna wrap it up. But I thank you guys so much for staying here. It looks like our average view duration is 30 minutes. Come on, 30 minutes. I'm so glad. So whether you guys are being here for the whole stream or you just stopping by, I really appreciate you for being here. We are streaming in both the horizontal platform, or like the regular like live stream on your phone, as well as the vertical. So I'm glad to have you guys drop in. So this is where we are on this card. I am working on the cowboy, or was working on the cowboy when we left off Wednesday. So before Wednesday, he's going to be completed, and then I'll move on to another character. So because I was getting frustrated the first day I was working on him, which was last Wednesday, not this past Wednesday, but the one before that, I decided to do some of the background, just sort of bring it in together, because before then it was like a green background, just because I knew that this was going to be outside. But I'm really happy with the way that he's shaping up. I am seeing, now that I'm looking at it fresh from Wednesday, seeing some things that I would like to improve on as I work through this. But he's going to be done by Wednesday, and then Wednesday we'll start on another character. So if you like a less chatty live stream, join me Wednesday for Bring Your Own Project Live. That is the space where we co-work and study and all of the things together. And then next Sunday we'll be back here for Paint With Me Live on the 5 of Cups. So until then, hope y'all have a happy, creative, and prosperous week, and I appreciate you for watching. Peace.